As of right now, New York State Police have confirmed arrests have been made. Abundance of caution, the Waterville City School District chose to reschedule and move the game after an explosion there yesterday. They didn't want to go on camera, but said maintaining the sidewalks and having ADA accessibility is important for businesses. Many of their patrons are of an older population. It's now the third day of protests. Now they're getting back to their traditional in-store shopping. Historic day as Governor Kathy Hochul is sworn into office. Quinn says the town of Waterford's entrance is a perfect example of being ADA accessible, with a push-to-start door, a ramp to help people with wheelchairs get in and out of the building, and a handicap-reserved parking spot right out front. But that was not the case a year ago here at Davey Rout says he brought his 66-year-old mom, Rosemarie, who lived in Rensselaer, to Albany Medical Center in October after she was having medical issues.
I kept checking in on her, and she waited for quite a while just in the waiting room. And I mean, at least overnight for the first night, and then they got her in the hallway. So she was just in the hallway for another night.
In total, Davey's mom spent over 50 hours in the emergency room. She was diagnosed with a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in the lung. She died in November due to medical complications.
You know, ironically, that once she got into her room, it was a lot better. The nurses, took care of her, but it was the whole entire triage experience. She's never even encountered that.
Meanwhile, first responders say patients and families aren't alone. And it's not just Albany Med seeing the extreme wait times. This is a post on the Troy Firefighters Union Facebook page from Sunday. The department had 3 ambulances at Samaritan Hospital waiting to drop patients off at the ER.
Some of the hospitals have been on diversion a few times already this year, which means we can't bring patients there. We have to go to another hospital.
First responders attribute the long wait times to staffing shortages and not enough beds to admit patients to the hospital.
I think there's multiple factors that bring everybody to being short-staffed, whether it's money, whether it's professions that people aren't getting into anymore.
Regardless of the circumstances, Rout says he hopes no one has to go through what his family and others have. Do you think had your mom been able to get into the emergency room quicker, that perhaps her health conditions may have taken a different turn for better?
Yeah, because not only was she in there for so long, it definitely hurt her emotionally. I mean, she called me several times crying.
In Albany, Emma Quinn, CBS 6 News. Disability rights advocate Darlene McGraw has worked to make Saratoga County accessible for everyone. McGraw uses a tricycle to get around after a head injury left her disabled. Her current task, making the city of Mechanicville more handicap accessible, especially the sidewalks.
They stop and go. I mean,
There got some not paved parts,
and the grassy areas can get involved.
So how does a situation like this make it difficult for somebody with a manual wheelchair or a walker to get by?
Because they can get caught up in the grassy areas, and they can lose their balance, they can tip over.
CBS 6 followed Darlene to Mechanicville City Hall, where she asked local officials for their ADA transition plans that showcase how they're going to fix the sidewalks and make other areas more accessible. Darlene was not able to get a hold of anyone. Mechanicville City Hall is located in the original building from 1914. Now, the building doesn't have an elevator, but according to New York State Court ADA documents, if somebody can't access the courts upstairs, the courts will move downstairs to a different room. CBS 6 reached out to the mayor's office for an interview, but did not hear back. We also followed Darlene to Waterford, where we met resident Mike Chase. He uses an electric wheelchair as health issues have left him immobile.
Sometimes there be a lot of traffic, and sometimes cars drive by, they run a stop sign, and they hit me.
Darlene says the town of Waterford's entrance is a perfect example of being ADA accessible, with a push-to-start door, a ramp to help people with wheelchairs get in and out of the building, and a handicap-reserved parking spot right out front. Meanwhile, right across the street at the village offices, she says they could be doing better. CBS 6 reached out to Assemblywoman Carrie Warner for comment as she represents Mechanicville. We did not hear back, but State Assemblywoman Mary Beth Walsh, who represents other parts of Saratoga County, says in her district, like Half Moon and Clifton Park, they've enhanced their disability access and hopes rural areas are picking up on the trend.
If you live in New York City or you live in a big city, you're used to navigating in different ways, but in our area, we still are very, very focused around cars. And as that starts to change, which I think is a good thing, I think that our planning and our zoning and everything has to change along with it.
A historic day as Governor Kathy Hochul is sworn into office. Her first real challenge of 2023, the budget. Despite a bleak economic forecast, the governor wants the budget to hold steady.
The affordability crisis in housing and energy and everything. It's making life just too damn hard for New Yorkers.
Governor Hochul vowing to work towards improving New Yorkers' quality of life during her inaugural speech Sunday. The budget playing a role in that effort. Lawmakers have differing opinions on how to best get the job done in a post-pandemic world.
Not talking restrictions. We're talking about, living life as normal and trying to operate and hopefully our economy bounces back.
As 2022 finished strong, Democrats still remain optimistic as federal COVID relief funding will not be part of the budget. Meanwhile, Republicans are voicing concerns.
I think it's going to be a very tough budget year, and I'll be very interested to see what the priorities are. Everything can't be a crisis. Everything can't be something that needs to have more money thrown at it.
Assembly Minority Leader Republican William Barkley says this year's budget will remain steady. It's the future years he's worried about.
It's not so much cutting programs. What we have to do is slow the growth of spending. When you're spending, 8 to 10% increases in spending, what we have to do is just lower that spending. So it's not necessarily cutting programs. We just can't fund programs to the extent that maybe we had been.
Democrat Phil Steck says the state needs to govern more efficiently.
I personally was not one who was of the opinion that the federal government was going to be the savior of all things, and we need to do things at the state level to be better prepared for the ups and downs of the economy.
If the money isn't spent efficiently, these legislators fear for the future education, childcare, and mental health programs, which they say will impact taxpayers the most. In Albany, I'm Emma Quinn.